let's see. Okay, Shahid, do you want me to start now or wait 5 minutes?
I think we can wait 5 minutes. I think more people will join.
Okay, تمام. Guys, معلش, excuse my setup, it's so random. بس ما كان في مكان في البيت. And you'll hear me multiple times clearing my throat وهيك because my throat رايح شو فيها شوي. Let's see. Are you guys prepared? Do you feel like you're prepared for the exam ولا لسه؟ لا لا ما عليك. إن شاء الله it's good. Not even close. Did they make any Allah يسلمك. I don't know who said سلامتك because I can't see a name, بس الله يسلمك. Did they make any review sessions? OSPI or like any anatomy review sessions for anything? Okay.
Yes, so this is the first one.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think they'll make, I meant an OSPI session with their doctors. إنه ممكن يعملوا لهم, I think they do, from what I remember, إنه بيعملوا لنا an OSPI session, review session in the lab. And so I just want to see if they had it. Well, it's not scheduled yet. Definitely, if it's scheduled, attend it, guys. There's going to be a PAL session, yeah, about it, but no, attend it. Yeah, I think بيكون في evening lab, if I'm not mistaken. But usually they make a session by the doctors themselves, يعني إن هم بيعملوا لكم an OSPI review session or something like this of lab material. Maybe ask your BLCs about it. I'm not sure. إذا حكوا لكم عنه, or maybe they just didn't schedule it yet. If not, you can even ask the doctors, يعني. So yeah. Either way, there's going to be a PAL session review about it though. So don't worry. Yeah, about 2 more minutes. So for some reason, I don't know how I can see the chat تبع Zoom while I'm screen recording because I'm using my iPad. So يعني I'm شوية كأني يعني جد grandma. But I'm gonna join in my phone عشان I can see in case you guys ask questions. Okay. Okay, guys. We can start now. Are you ready? Class. Oh, well, then I have to say, this lecture, it's not as important as other lectures in MSK, but definitely the topic is like really important for the following blocks because it'll be mentioned in every single block from now on. So to have a good basis, عشان يعني you can build on it, okay? Because with every rotation you're gonna have more and more details. But it's good to have a good understanding right now. وإن شاء الله in like your actual MSK exam, I think you can best يجي لكم, you'll only get like 1 or 2 questions or 3 max, Usually they don't ask it that much from what I've seen. But yeah, inshallah it's easy, don't worry. Okay. So first of all, you all hear me كويس صح? I'm gonna wait for at least 5 people هيك يحكوا yes before I continue. Okay. تمام. Okay. So in the nervous system, when we think of the nervous system, you need to think of 2 things: central and peripheral. This is a common thing. You may have encountered it before. It's nothing new, but something that some people tend to forget is that the central nervous system, it doesn't only include your brain, but your spinal cord too, okay? Then everything that comes out of it, okay, is considered your peripheral nervous system, all right? There you go. I'm trying to, okay. Look, any boomer, I swear. Okay. So your peripheral nervous system, عندكم 12 cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Okay, 12 cranial nerves. Cranial, why? Because they're coming out from your brain in the cranium. Okay, your skull is called the cranium, and that's why they're called cranial nerves, because they're basically located up there. Spinal nerves all come out of your spinal cord, and they can be divided into autonomic or somatic. One way I like to remember the difference between them is that somatic, so somatic S for surface. So it's everything that's on the surface, okay? So it's somatic division, or the somatic nervous system controls your skin, your skeletal muscles, because they're kind of hek barra, you know, and your joints. So these 3 things are controlled in the somatic system, okay? Which is your skin, skeletal muscles, and the joints. And that basically means that the sensory information for these 3 areas that I mentioned goes to the somatic division. Your motor neurons, they innervate your skeletal muscles, okay? Number 1 rule that you shouldn't mistake the autonomic, okay? Another thing, 1 key difference between them is that the somatic is voluntary while the autonomic is involuntary. I remember this how? Autonomic, yani automatic, okay? So it happens on its own. So the autonomic division or autonomic nervous system, it controls everything that you have no control over, like your heart beating, your breathing, your digestive system. All these things you cannot control, and that's why, because it's controlled by your autonomic nervous system. So that's why when I want to, for example, flex my calf muscles or my biceps, if I want to flex it, I can. Why? Because I can control it through my somatic nervous system. But you can't exactly do that with your internal organs, okay? And that's why, that's how we know that the autonomic nervous system is involuntary. So, so as I mentioned, it's involuntary. It's also known as the visceral nervous system. Why? Because viscera basically means internal organs, or to be specific, hollow organs. So all the organs in your GI tract, they're hollow organs, they're innervated by the autonomic nervous system, as well as your glands and two other types of muscle tissue, which are the smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles, they're present in your heart. Smooth muscles, do you guys know where they're located? 2 important places you need to remember where the smooth muscles are located. Sorry?
In the stomach?
Yeah, so GI, yep. And what other place are they located, the smooth muscles? Exactly.
Blood vessels.
Blood vessels, right. So that's why the autonomic nervous system, you'll go into this, into more depth in this in CVP, but it can cause vasoconstriction of the blood vessels and vasodilation. That's how it regulates blood flow to certain organs, okay? So that's how we know, okay, in the autonomic nervous system, it's involuntary, it innervates all these things. How can it be further divided? It's further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic, okay? So do you guys know what the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic is? I want to see if you guys have encountered it.
Sympathetic is for fight and flight responses.
P for peace, S for stress. Exactly. Therapies. Yep. Exactly. So, and it's kind of common sense by now. If you're fighting someone, you don't have time, you don't have the energy to digest food in your stomach, right? It's not the time to go to the bathroom, for example. That's why those organs are inhibited, okay? While when you're chilling, you're relaxing, you have all the energy in the world to spend on digesting your food, So that's why the parasympathetic system is called the rest and digest, okay? And sympathetic, fight or flight. Okay, this will, because I saw, by the way, one of the past questions in your like MSK was about a man jumping off a roof or parachute, not off a roof, but he was jumping off from a plane for something, and they're asking what would he have basically, and he would have, which system would be overactive, parasympathetic or the sympathetic?
Sympathetic.
Sympathetic.
Yep. Okay, so that was a previous question. Okay, type. So now this image, I want you to ignore these things, okay, all the organs on the side, and just focus on all the lines in the middle and where they come out. Can you guys tell me the difference, or can you identify at least إيش الgreen or إيش blue or purple? So what's the purple and what's the green?
Green is sympathetic because it's thoracolumbar, and the parasympathetic is craniosacral.
Exactly. Yep. So parasympathetic, it originates from the brain stem, or you can just say brain, but specific, if you want to be specific, it originates from the brain stem and from the sacral region. Okay. So you can kind of think of it as the parasympathetic, it comes out from both ends of the nervous system, the at the very top and in the very bottom, okay? And sympathetic, yeah, as she mentioned, in T1 to L2, so thoracolumbar, okay? From this area only, that's the only area where you have the sympathetic neurons, their origin, okay? That's when they come out. So what's another thing you notice? Do you notice anything else that's different? Okay, maybe Hashan, you didn't take, I don't know if you took, maybe you passed by it before, ولا لا, بس المهم, neurons, do you know the difference between the normal neurons that innervate your skeletal muscle and a sympathetic neuron, for example, in terms of structure? So the neuron that's innervating your muscle, it goes directly from the spinal cord to your skeletal muscle. Exactly. So yeah, what's her name? Amru? Yeah. So there's presynaptic and postsynaptic ganglions. Exactly. That's present in your autonomic nervous system. You don't have that in your somatic nervous system. So in your somatic nervous system, all the sensory neurons, the afferent ones, and the motor neurons, they go directly from the sensory from the organ to the spinal cord, and motor from the spinal cord to the organ, and they go directly straight, okay? It's just one neuron, okay? While in the autonomic nervous system, the entire pathway has two neurons. So there's a first order neuron and a second order neuron. Now I'll point here so you guys have a better idea. So هنا this circle here, this is the first order neuron. هذا parasympathetic. It comes out and synapses with a second order neuron. So the light shades, these are second order neurons. They're the ones that are also called postganglionic. And the darker shade, that's the preganglionic. هدول كلهم preganglionic. Same thing with the sympathetic. The first order neuron, it originates from the spinal cord. The second order neuron originates after the ganglion, when they synapse. So basically, whenever you have a synapse, that's when the first neuron synapses with the second neuron. So they call that second order neuron, okay? So this introduces, like I said, the concept of ganglions. So ganglions are you just need to understand it, or I guess memorize it. You can also visualize it. They're just a group of cell bodies, because that's where or neuronal cell bodies, that's where the synapse happens. So you have one end of a neuron and the neuronal cell body of another neuron, and they synapse in ganglion. And the ganglion would have many of these synapses, okay? So it's just a group of neuronal cell bodies. That's what ganglions are. And so the difference between the sympathetic and parasympathetic in terms of ganglions is that the parasympathetic, as you can see, their ganglions are located very far away from the origin, right? They're located, if not directly, very close to the target organ, or directly on top of the target organ. Okay, that's why the postganglionic fiber, which is this one, the second order neuron, it's very short, right? In contrast to the sympathetic, where the preganglionic, the first order neuron, its fibers, they're short because the ganglion is closer to the origin, okay? So it synapses with the ganglion, and then the postganglionic fiber, it's the long one. It travels a long distance to get to the organ, the target organ. Now, another thing that's special for the sympathetic is that some of these ganglions, they synapse in this thing. There's a trunk here, sympathetic trunk. This trunk contains what? The paravertebral ganglions, okay? So basically what anatomists found out is that in the sympathetic autonomic system, our nervous system, you have two types of ganglions. Okay, I'll repeat. Okay. So هلا احنا عندنا sympathetic و parasympathetic. Let's start with the easy one, parasympathetic. هنا the neuronal cell body parasympathetic, it originates when? بالsacral region وبالbrainstem, right? هنا الbrainstem, هنا الsacral region. It comes out and goes to the bladder because this preganglionic fiber is going to innervate your bladder because the parasympathetic, what is it going to do? It's going to tell your bladder, yalla, urinate, because now you have all the time in the world, right? So it's going to go to the bladder. In order for it to tell the bladder, yalla, contract, urinate, it has to communicate or send the message to another neuron. So this is where the second neuron comes in, which is the purple, the light shade of purple here. I don't know if you can see my pointer, by the way. Can you see my pointer? Yes, okay, good. So this is the second order neuron. It's the postganglionic neuron. It's very short. So that's what I want you to notice, is that the postganglionic neurons in the parasympathetic, they're all very small or very short. And the reason for that is that the preganglionic, which are these fibers, they travel basically all the distance to go to that specific organ. Okay. Meanwhile, the sympathetic, it's the opposite. So the preganglionic fibers are short. They go from the spinal cord, they go to their ganglion. For the sympathetic nervous system, their ganglion is when? It's not on the organ, no, it's in a sympathetic chain, okay? Which is this chain right here. I want to see if there's this image is good, صراحة, and it's a more zoomed in image, but okay, focus on this vertebrae. You see this, this is the lateral horn, okay? هنا في cell bodies. These are the sympathetic cell bodies. See, this is T1 to L1. That's where we have the origin of the sympathetic cell bodies. So this is the first order neuron. It comes out and then it goes to a chain. This entire chain is called what? Sympathetic chain, okay? So it goes to here, one part. Each level goes to its corresponding part and synapses with the postganglionic fiber, which is the red. Okay, is that clear? Do parasympathetic neurons also originate in anatomy? This goes back to my main question. Where do the parasympathetic neurons originate? We just said it in the previous slide. Do you remember? They originate from the brainstem and the sacrum. So in these areas, they don't have the lateral horn. The lateral horn is specific for the sympathetic, okay? And it's only between T1 to L2. Some say L3, okay? And then what you need to know is that when they come out, their ganglions, the main thing you need to know is their ganglions, they're located as not on the organ, like in parasympathetic. In parasympathetic, their ganglion is very close to the organ that they're innervating. For sympathetic, it's in a chain. Like this is a ganglion, this is another ganglion, this is another ganglion. You can see here L4 sympathetic ganglion, L3 sympathetic ganglion, and they're all connected, okay? And then when they synapse, some of them actually go down and interact with the levels beneath them. That's why the sympathetic innervation kind of goes everywhere. It's not localized. It doesn't go to one direct organ. It can ascend and descend in the sympathetic chain. Okay, so here you can see how this comes out. Okay, it synapses here, but it can also go down and synapse with other neurons. Okay, so this is just to show how the sympathetic nervous system is arranged. What you need to know is that we have something called the sympathetic chain. Sympathetic chain is basically a chain of ganglia, okay, that have the neuronal, first order neuron, the preganglionic neuron, synapsing with the second order neuron, which is the postganglionic neuron. Now, some of these sympathetic ganglia, preganglionic sympathetic fibers, they go and they synapse. First, they join other neurons, like as you can see in a high sympathetic neuron, high another one, and this is another one. They join together and then they synapse with another neuron. So basically what they're doing is they're forming a plexus and they synapse in a different ganglia, a ganglia that's outside of the sympathetic chain. Okay, so to show this more clearly, I'll show this image. Yeah. So here, you see these, هذه ganglia celiacum. Another easier way of saying it is a celiac ganglia. This is another ganglia. This is another one. And this is, so we have 4 different ganglia. These ganglia are located outside of the sympathetic chain. So for these ganglia, the preganglionic fibers, what did they do? They went outside of the spinal cord. They might have went into the chain, but they didn't synapse. Okay, so here these fibers, they did not synapse in the chain. Instead, they joined. كل واحد joined مع the respective or related sympathetic neuron, and they formed a plexus. Then they go to their respective ganglia. You don't need to know the details of this ganglia. What does it do? These neurons, what do they do? Because this is too advanced. You'll take it in neuro. You just need to understand that there's 2 types of ganglions or ganglia in the sympathetic nervous system. You have the ganglia in the sympathetic chain, which are also called the paravertebral ganglia, meaning that they're meaning they're parallel to the spinal cord. So this is one sympathetic chain, and there's another one on this side. They're parallel to the sympathetic the spinal cord. So this is one type of ganglia of the sympathetic nervous system, okay, which is the sympathetic chain, also called as the paravertebral ganglia. These ganglia right here, if you actually look on in the real human body or actual anatomy, they're located around the abdominal and thoracic, abdominal aorta and its branches, and they're called prevertebral ganglia. Okay. So again, the location might not be important. I don't think he'll ask you about these specifics about the ganglia. I'm just explaining it so that you have a basis. Okay. You have 2 types of ganglia. What are they? Can someone recall what they are? The sympathetic
ganglia and post-synaptic ganglia.
These are the fibers. So preganglionic neurons and postganglionic neurons, or preganglionic fibers and postganglionic fibers. So these fibers, they just من اسمهم preganglionic fiber يعني إيش؟ يعني it's the fiber اللي قبل الganglion. So this fiber, before synapsing, it's called the preganglionic fiber. As soon as it synapses, it's called with the other neuron. This is now called a postganglionic fiber because it's another neuron. It's past the ganglion. It's post the synapse. Okay. So preganglionic neurons join to form ganglia other than those in the chain. Yeah, so basically you have preganglionic neurons in the entire chain. All of these fibers coming out are preganglionic. The difference between them is where they synapse. So some of them synapse in the sympathetic chain. What does synapse mean? That means that they communicate with another neuron, okay? And the other neuron is now called the postganglionic neuron, okay? So this is a postganglionic neuron. And here they synapse to build sympathetic chain. So this is a postganglionic neuron. It's going to go directly, let's say, to the heart after it's synapsed. Some sympathetic fibers, like in this region, this is the lower thoracic and lower lumbar region, they, instead of synapsing in the sympathetic chain, they form a plexus. So these are all still preganglionic neurons because they didn't synapse yet. And they're going to go synapse in a different ganglia. مش عاجبهم the sympathetic chain. They don't want to synapse in the sympathetic chain. They leave the sympathetic chain and go synapse somewhere else. Once they synapse, now this is a postganglionic neuron. Okay, so the difference is where they synapse. Some sympathetic fibers synapse in the sympathetic chain. Some sympathetic fibers leave the chain and go synapse somewhere else. Okay, but they're all still preganglionic. As soon as they synapse, as soon as they reach a ganglion, that's when you form the postganglionic fiber. Okay, does that make sense? ولا في حد بده يعني أعيد؟ هو المشكلة either way إنه this might be أصلاً يعني too detailed for you إنه he might not ask about it. بس إنه it's just for your understanding to know the difference between sympathetic or parasympathetic. That's it. Okay. Are you guys good? Let me see. It's okay. Okay. So we established إنه عندنا sympathetic chain, عندنا some ganglia للsympathetic nervous system برا. Okay. The idea is what you know and what we kept repeating 100,000 مرة is the preganglionic neurons and postganglionic neurons, and where they synapse. Okay. Okay, let me see. Let's go. Okay, here. Do you see this? This green, this dark green. Okay. Is this a preganglionic or a postganglionic? The dark green one. Post, exactly. Does anyone disagree? So the reason she said it's, she said it's post, is that it's after the synapse. Okay. Why is it called the ganglia? Because they know spinal nerve can join together once stated. Okay. So ganglia, like I said, the term ganglia basically means a group of neuronal cell bodies. So what is this circle right here? It's a neuronal cell body. It's a cell body of another neuron. It's the second order neuron, okay? The first order neuron is this green right here in the lateral horn. It goes out. This is this light green is what? The preganglionic. Exactly. The light green is preganglionic. It goes to the sympathetic chain. Then it synapses with the second order neuron. This synapse, this area where it synapsed is the ganglia. That's where they synapse, okay? That's where the pre and post ganglionic fibers synapse in the ganglia, which is just the literal meaning, I think, of it is that a group of cell bodies, because you'll find lots of cell bodies of the second order neurons here, and they're all just synapsing, get it with the pre, okay? Then the fiber for the post ganglion goes out, and as you can see, it can go to it can ascend and descend the sympathetic chain. Okay? Is this clear? Sorry. Another thing, and I wanted to show here. So, what's special about the adrenal gland? Do you guys know? Do you remember from the lecture if you attended this lecture? I want to see.
It's the adrenal gland. Basically, it have one like it doesn't have like this other neurons post ganglionic and preganglionic. It basically has one system and.
It basically has. It's only innervated by who? What fiber? What is it called?
Preganglionic.
Preganglionic. So it only has. Why? Because it shouldn't also be called preganglionic because there's no ganglion to synapse. So this is the only sympathetic organ that's directly innervated by the sympathetic nervous system. There's no ganglion. It does not synapse with any ganglion. Okay, so it receives direct innervation from the sympathetic nervous system. And it's not cholinergic, actually. No, it's, from what I remember, it's sympathetic. Correct me if I'm wrong. معلش. But no, I remember it's directly stimulated by the sympathetic nervous system. Okay. Okay. This is just to show you how. Okay, these level of segments of the spinal cord are responsible for the salivary glands. So sympathetic stimulation for the salivary glands and eye, heart, lungs. I don't think you need to know this. This is like neuro level, not your level. This, as I said, it was just to show you how this blue, اللي هو preganglionic, it can go synapse, some of it can descend, and some of it can ascend in the sympathetic chain. Okay? Unlike the parasympathetic, which goes directly to the organ. ما بيروح يطلع ولا ينزل, nothing. Okay?
The preganglionic, اللي هي البلو, is it in the lateral side or it's in the ventral side? Basically, it's motor neuron.
You can see it goes through the motor. It's a ventral, and it goes through the ventral root. Yeah. but it comes out, it
Uh-huh.
originates from where?
So we
From
have
the back. Mhm.
so basically in the nerve, basically we have three types of nerves, right? We have the motor
Mhm.
nerves, the sensory nerves, and the sympathetic
Autonomic.
nerves, right?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Okay. And you can see how the difference you need to know, the difference you need to remember is just the origin, the function, and all that. So the motor neurons, they come out from the anterior horn, while the sympathetic would come out from the lateral horn. This is just another image for you guys. Here you can see the yellow is the parasympathetic. You can see how they go directly to their organ. And the ganglion, as I said, it's located on top of their organ. Okay. What's the third nerve? The third nerve is so first one is sensory, then motor as in somatic motor, the one for your skeletal muscles. And third is the autonomic, which is sympathetic usually. Okay. Here, like I said, the ganglia for the parasympathetic are on the organ. They're very close to the organ. Okay, they're sometimes actually even part of the cranial nerve if it's coming from the brainstem. Okay. As I said, the specific names for the ganglions, these neurons, the nerves, the names of the nerves. I don't think you'll need them for MSK. You'll need them more for neuro. Same thing with the sacral region. You can see here, they form a plexus first, then they go to their own ganglia on the target organ. How much you need to know about parasympathetic? Like I said, preganglionic is longer than the postganglionic. In sympathetic, the preganglionic is short and the postganglionic is long. Okay. I showed you this. Here, what did I want to show? Oh yeah, I want to show, okay. This is just to remind you, sympathetic fibers, as we mentioned, they supply blood vessels, smooth muscles, and glands. Okay, like sweat glands, salivary glands, okay, adrenal gland. Okay, this is again to show you different neurons. So this sensory neurons, they go through direct path, no ganglions, they do have a ganglion, the dorsal root ganglion, but you don't see any synapse there, okay? It's just the cell bodies. Motor, again, directly innervates the skeletal muscle. Sympathetic, and parasympathetic both, they have a presynaptic neuron and then a postsynaptic neuron. This is also called a first order neuron, and this can be also called a second order neuron, okay? But to be more specific to the autonomic nervous system, you can say presynaptic or preganglionic and postganglionic. Okay, Hina, he just wanted you to know the difference and the organization basically. So we have somatic and visceral. Visceral, like I said, it means internal organs. Somatic, surface. So you think of skin, muscle, bones, parietal membranes. These are layers of connective tissue covering certain things, like your periosteum covers your bone, peritoneum covers your GI tract completely, pericardium covers your heart, pleura covers your lung, okay? And they're all innervated by somatic nerves, okay? But visceral, it supplies the visceral, like we mentioned, heart, lungs, liver, glands. You guys can read this. What you need to know, I don't know if you'll ask this again, but how is the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system stimulated? Like, how does your body know, and okay, the nerve in your sympathetic nerves should be stimulated right now? What do they sense? They basically respond to stretch or ischemia. So anytime your heart, for example, your heart, you'll soon learn in CVP that every time as your heart gets filled with blood, the cardiac muscle stretches. And as it's stretching, the sympathetic nervous fibers get stimulated so that they realize there's blood in the heart. The heart is like filling up with blood. I need to contract. So it increases the heart rate, the contractility of the heart. So it starts to contract more because you're filling up the heart with more blood. Okay, so this is just an example for you to understand, how does the sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic nervous system get stimulated, okay? And it's usually due to stretching of muscles or ischemia. It can be due to pain and when it gets injured or there's any sort of irritation, they usually cause a dull pain, okay? So you can't really pinpoint where the pain is. One example of it, for example, if I'm trying to remember, but I think it was the gallbladder, where sometimes if you have a stone in the gallbladder and your gallbladder, you can have referred pain to your shoulder. Okay, it's not it's not just in your abdomen. This is because of the autonomic nervous system. Okay, and the idea is the pain is vague and ill-focused. That's just what you need to understand. Okay, ischemia is basically when you have decreased blood perfusion or blood supply to a certain organ or certain area in your body. So you have less oxygen supply, and that's basically ischemia. So ischemia is whenever in any area of your body, whether it's a blood vessel, it can be a heart, it can be a muscle tissue, it can be any sort of tissue, where it's being deprived of nutrients or oxygen or blood. Okay. So once it realizes and there's ischemia, there's decreased blood flow, it stimulates your brain or your nervous system to basically react accordingly. Okay. Why is the vagus nerve mentioned specifically? Okay, هنا بالvisceral afferents. Yeah, because I think it's because the vagus nerve, it's one of the main nerves that, isn't it exactly, it is craniosacral outflow. It comes down from your brain and goes down to your thorax. It actually goes through your thorax and to your abdomen all the way. It's like the longest cranial nerve. And you'll learn about it in GI because it actually controls a lot of your GI system. Your GI tract is controlled. A lot of it is controlled by the parasympathetic flow that comes from the vagus nerve, right? So yeah, that's basically why it's mentioned, because it's required in the GI tract to pick up the stimulus and allow you to digest accordingly. For example, there are certain reflexes. Again, you'll take this in GI, like for example, you have some reflexes that increase your GI motility. They increase some secretions in your GI tract. These in response to certain stimuli, okay? And these are all related to your autonomic nervous system, but you don't need to know about these reflexes right now. You'll take them in GI, okay? And yeah, and then, you know, for somatic, since it stimulates or innervates a direct area, that area, once it's injured, you feel the pain, you'll know where the pain is, okay? So you'll know exactly where the pain is, you know exactly where the hot temperature is, you know, it's well localized. It's not like the autonomic, okay? Honestly, I think that's all you need to know about this. Again, details, you'll get to it in neuro. Just know these keywords: pain, sharp, well localized. Think of somatic innervation. Pain, dull, vague, and ill-focused, that's more autonomic. That means there's something wrong in your organs, okay? Your internal organs. This was just how we mentioned this kind of briefly, but basically how the autonomic nervous system, it can be divided based on anatomical and functional. Functional, like the different functions you have. Anatomical, like where they originate, okay? So the parasympathetic originates from this cranium and the sacrum, while the sympathetic from T1 to L2, okay? Pharmacological grounds, you'll need to know this, especially during, when we'll meet. I don't know if they might actually get you questions about it later on, but basically lots of drugs that are cholinergic agonists or cholinergic antagonists, adrenergic agonists, adrenergic antagonists. These are all, once you know the functions of the sympathetic and parasympathetic, you'll know what the action of that drug is just from the name, okay? So cholinergic, we know that's usually related to parasympathetic, while adrenergic is sympathetic, okay? And you'll take this more in physiology. Okay, then you have the sympathetic nervous system. As I mentioned, it's located in the lateral gray horn of the thoracic and upper two lumbar segments. Cranial outflow and sacral outflow, we said this is for the parasympathetic. If you want to know the specific cranial nerves that have parasympathetic outflow, that's cranial nerve 3, 7, 9, and 10, okay? Cholinergic is parasympathetic. Yeah, mostly parasympathetic, okay? And for the parasympathetic origin in the sacrum, it's the second, third, and sometimes fourth sacral segments, yeah. So this you might ask you about it here, which part of the sacrum has parasympathetic outflow? It's mainly the second, third, and sometimes the fourth. Cranial nerves is 3, 7, 9, and 10, okay? Sympathetic lateral horn, yes, of which segments? T1 to L2. That means if you look at a transverse section of L3, you won't see the lateral horn. Or L4, for example, if you cut the spinal cord and look at it at L4, you won't see the lateral horn, okay? Just like in this image. This is at L5. ما في lateral horn. Why? Because we don't have any sympathetic neurons originating from that level. I think that's basically it, by the way, guys. You have, if you want me to explain this, this is basically shows you the sympathetic nerves and how they travel. As I said, from the lateral horn, they go to the sympathetic chain. Some of them exit the sympathetic chain and go and synapse in the ganglions outside. Okay, like I said, there are some ganglions that are outside the sympathetic chain that they just don't like the sympathetic chain. So they want to go and synapse with other ganglia. Okay, understand it like that. While other neurons, they don't mind the sympathetic chain, they'll go and synapse in the sympathetic chain. Okay, and you can see here, there's one, it goes here, it synapses right here, and then parts of it goes up, ascends, parts of it goes down, okay? So they can be distributed within the spine, with spinal nerve at the same level, or they can be distributed at upper levels and lower levels. You can, find a direct branch. Here, for example, a direct branch to the heart after the synapse in the sympathetic chain. I'm trying to see maktub. Synapses with postganglionic neurons at higher or lower levels. Example in the superior cervical ganglion. So this is an example of a synapse with a postganglionic neuron that was at a higher level. Okay. This is honestly, just for your understanding. You won't really ask about it.
Do we have to memorize the picture?
Honestly, no, it's just what this picture, صح?
Yes.
Yeah, honestly, there's no way you can memorize it. You just need to understand, all these fibers that are sympathetic, they come out from the spinal cord. Some of them, they go up a level or down a level and synapse there. Others, they synapse at the level and then go to their target organ. Others, they don't even synapse in the sympathetic chain. They just leave the sympathetic chain and go synapse at a ganglion barra. Okay, the ganglions that I mentioned, the tannin. Okay, and that's it. Yeah, you just need to know that for your information. Again, I don't know if you'll ask about it, but no, it's a possibility that for sympathetic nerves, they can ascend and descend the chain. Okay, because it's not like the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic, فين كان هذيك for the parasympathetic, you can see how they just go directly. It's not messy, as you can see. مو زي الsympathetic بيطلع وينزل ما عنده chain, it goes directly to a ganglion that is on the target organ, synapses, then خلاص, it innervates the organ. Okay. And you don't need to memorize أكيد these things. He won't ask you to label وهاي الأشياء. Specifics you'll definitely know and take more in depth in neuro. Can you go through the 5th point? Okay, on this slide, I'm guessing, yeah. So finds a splanchnic nerve and synapses in pre-aortic abdominal ganglia. Yeah. So this is the this is talking about the ganglia that I mentioned. They're located outside the sympathetic chain. Okay. هنا, this is another picture. Okay, can someone tell me what this is? This is obvious. صح؟ إيش هذا? This long thing.
Synthetic chain?
Yes. طيب, what about these circles? What are these circles here?
Synapse?
The circle نفسها is actually a ganglion. Okay. I want to see if you actually Google it and just write celiac ganglia, they'll get you pictures of the ganglia how is it in your body. Like you'll find it on the aorta, okay? But it's basically, it's just a group heck. It's a group of neurons, okay? And what you said happens, the synapse, okay? So what you said is right. These are synapses, but where are the synapses happening? In a ganglia outside the sympathetic chain. Exactly, in a ganglia called prevertebral ganglia. So these are all prevertebral ganglia. The sympathetic chain is called a paravertebral ganglia. Okay? And so what they're saying here is that some of the sympathetic fibers, they go synapse in pre-aortic abdominal ganglia, which is basically this. See how here hymus and T5, this sympathetic nerve, it doesn't synapse in the sympathetic chain. It goes out from the sympathetic chain. It joins with other sympathetic fibers from T6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, they form a plexus, and then they go to the celiac ganglia and synapse. Okay, so then you can say that your liver its sympathetic supply comes from T5, T6, T7, T8, T9, T10, okay? But you don't need to know this. Again, this is specific. This is just for you to understand the picture so that you know what's going on, okay? So that these are just neurons that come out. They don't synapse in the sympathetic chain. They go to different ganglia outside of the sympathetic chain and synapse there. Same thing with this ganglia. You can see this is called the aortico-renal ganglia. The reason it's called that is because it's at a point between the aorta and the renal artery. Okay, it's kind of hard to imagine as well because you didn't take CVP yet. Once you take CVP, you'll see them come on. You'll see clear pictures. Okay. And these are the parasympathetic. Remember, imagine these ganglions, they'll be directly on the target organ, okay? Yeah, this picture is kind of explains what we've been kind of discussing, is that sympathetic is kind of all over the place, right? So it comes, it can descend, it can ascend, it can descend, it can go out directly. While parasympathetic is simple, it goes out from the spinal cord or from the brain, goes synapses of the ganglion, then ala tool, it innervates the target organ. Does that make sense? And here you can see in a ganglion chain and peripheral ganglia. The ganglion chain is also called what? Sympathetic chain or paravertebral ganglia. Peripheral ganglia is also called what? Prevertebral ganglia. So this is the exact same thing that we've been discussing, okay? So this peripheral ganglia, an example of it would be this celiac ganglia. Okay, so the nerve came out and it innervated a peripheral ganglia. It went and synapsed with another neuron in a peripheral ganglia. This is postsynaptic, and then this is presynaptic. So preganglionic and postganglionic. Hina, this is preganglionic, postganglionic. Okay. And yeah, he just wants you to know this is sympathetic is widespread distribution from a single ramus, while the parasympathetic it's localized. This is again just another picture. This is for you to know the function. Okay, you'll review this in the physiology lecture, but yeah, you know, parasympathetic, it constricts your pupils. It allows for saliva to flow because you want to eat. Okay, when you're resting and you're digesting, you want to eat. Your bronchi become constricted because you don't need to breathe in as much as you do when you're fighting. Your heartbeat is relaxed, it's slowed down. Your GI tract is working. Your liver is secreting bile. Kidney, gallbladder, you're urinating basically, okay? And then this is the sympathetic. Is anything so far in what I said unclear? Because that's basically it, honestly. And I have some questions for you guys too. I'd like to make sure you understood. Okay, is it all clear? Any questions? Okay. So this it's just a summary outline is just to tell you the zibda of the entire lecture. Central, peripheral, you know what they are. Peripheral, we have afferent peripheral system sensory. Efferent is the motor neurons. The motor neurons can also be autonomic and somatic, and we know the difference between autonomic and somatic. We have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. They're the divisions of the autonomic nervous system. And we know their functions. We need to know what he's going to ask about, definitely, the origin of the sympathetic and parasympathetic. If he wants to bring a question, he'll ask about something related to the origin, something related to their function. The postganglionic and preganglionic, which one's short, which one's long. The sympathetic chain ganglion, belongs to which, the sympathetic chain belongs to which nervous system. Obviously, he won't say sympathetic chain, he'll say paravertebral ganglia or something else. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, let's go on to the questions, then you'll see. Okay. don't, I'll give you, first of all, does anyone want to read the question? Because أنا عم بموت right now with my throat.
Which of the following consists of nerve that primary branch from the brain and sacral area only?
Okay, what's the answer? Yeah,
Parasympathetic.
pretty clear. Yeah, pretty clear, right? Okay. Does anyone want to answer the second one? Redo answer. Yalla guys, this is a practice for your OSCEs or oral exams that you'll have in 4th year. I know it's like 3 years from now, but still. La, I want someone to read it without saying the answer.
Which of these is not a feature of postganglionic neurons in the sympathetic nervous system?
What do you think is the answer?
Sure.
Exactly. So does anyone know why the other options are wrong? So we said
because it's usually taller. The postganglionic it originates at the effector organ, and it's taller, and it sometimes loses its myelination.
yeah.
The last one I
you'll
thought.
know in the physiology lecture you'll learn the sympathetic and autonomic nervous system in general is mainly unmyelinated or isn't really myelinated that much. Originating distal from the effector organ, because we said sympathetic nervous system, the origin is very far away from the target organ. Okay. That's why the postganglionic fiber is long, it's not short, which is why 3 is wrong. And we know it's adrenergic. Yeah, this is مفروض يكون مكتوب not, by the way, okay? Oh, they're asking not a feature. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Okay. Last one. Does anyone know what the answer is? So why is the
It's
adrenal
D.
gland? Exactly. So why? Because it's innervated by the spinal cord without passing through the ganglia. The other options, it's not innervated by the parasympathetic, aslan. The postganglionic neurons are cholinergic. No, they're not. They're neuroadrenergic. The postsynaptic response is mediated via muscarinic acetylcholine receptors. No, they're mediated by the neuroadrenergic receptors. Okay. And yeah, I think that's it. Pretty, I know يعني في lots of يعني complicated stuff. Okay, wait, can you explain the option D of the second question? Hina? So do you mean which of this question? Yes. So this is supposed to be not adrenergic. So we know in the sympathetic nervous system is adrenergic. Yani it releases norepinephrine or epinephrine. And you learn this in the physiology lecture about autonomic nervous system. I think there's a PAL session after this about it. Okay. So sympathetic nervous system is adrenergic. Okay. And yeah, that's it. You're welcome, guys. Well, I know it's lots of new terms, but just focus on يعني what I told you. The questions that will come on this lecture will be very easy, inshallah, and direct. Yani. Just remember origin or function, okay? Thank you all so much. Okay, well, thank you to the PAL team, mashallah alaykum. You guys were very, very organized in every step of the way. So Anjad, it's thanks to them, they organized it. Adrenergic means releasing epinephrine. Yeah, it means releasing epinephrine or norepinephrine, okay? You'll find it aslan bil lecture when you do the lecture. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rawan.
I know.